Mayor Daley always had big dreams, big thoughts, wanted to have development across the city.
So he was always interested in parks. He was interested in public art. His wife was also a big advocate of the arts. So when he had this chance to build a park, he saw this as an opportunity. Adrian Smith was commissioned to come up with a design for a park. And he did have a design, continue the kind of classical features. That's how the city was going to celebrate the Millennium, was to use that scheme. And Richard Daley approached John Bryan, who thought that the park should speak to the future, not reflect back to the past. That should define Chicago as forward-looking, as artistic, as a city that valued the arts and was incorporating a kind of global vision.
This needs to be a truly grand park on the scale of Central Park, Versailles Gardens. All of the world-class level of public arts, culture, park spaces.
When Daley approached Bryan with this proposal, he jumped at it and said he would do it. And when he was driving back to his office with an aide, he told her, we're not going to raise $30 million. We're going to raise at least twice that. That he would approach the leading and most historic private corporations and individual families and ask them to make a one-time contribution to the legacy of their family or their corporation to Chicago and fund one of what he called enhancements in the park. And ultimately he raised over $230 million.
There's an evolution of the park, and it basically was doubled in size. It basically drove up the cost significantly and well past the $190 million that we had issued in revenue bonds. We were responsible basically for the infrastructure, everything from the caisson supports, the foundation, the platform, any of the utility needs that you need for the park. All of those are the kinds of things that the city was paying for. So it left me walking away from it like, where am I going to get that money from? There was a consultant with our government affairs operation, and he comes to me and he says, these tax increment statutes, if we made a minor change, you might be able to use tax increment dollars for the park.
TIF is one financing mechanism that is used in these kinds of one-off, sort of large-scale mega projects. And that's a way of designating an area for public improvement and then using the future property taxes to pay for expenditures in the present. It's kind of like a credit card, and you're committing future property taxes that hopefully will grow or increase to pay for big infrastructure expenses up front.
So is TIF taxpayer money?
Oh, yeah.
But I think the naysayers were saying, well, isn't that property taxes? But it was not the type of property tax that basically affected everybody across the city. The people out in the neighborhoods were not affected by this. It was coming from the money that was available there in the Loop tax increment district.
But Millennium Park was not technically within the boundaries of the Central Loop TIF district.
There were special provisions added to the TIF law to allow the money from the Central Loop TIF to be used in Millennium Park, which was actually across Michigan Avenue from the closest part of the TIF.
What it said was that any public project that was separated from a tax increment district by a public right-of-way, you could port monies from the tax increment district to the project, use it for the public project. I'm paraphrasing the legislation, but that was the legislation that was passed.
And when Mayor Daley decided to tap those funds for Millennium Park, there was some controversy and concern about whether or not this was an abuse, yet another abuse of the TIF program.
We took advantage of the situation that, and I say that in the most positive way. We probably poured in as much as $100 million. We were pushing probably support from the city, pretty close to $300 million for Millennium Park between the revenue bonds and the amount of money that we poured in from the Loop TIF.